Hello all, welcome to rawtrainings.com. In this session, we'll discuss about bind parameters as well as list of values in RTF template. We'll try to understand what is this bind parameter as well as list of values, and also we'll discuss with one of the sample sales order report. In that, we'll try to discuss about the parameters as well as list of values. So what is bind parameter? It's nothing but a variable, and the value of that variable is passed at runtime by the user. That's a bind parameter. So generally in different languages we may have a different approach, and now in the Oracle Fusion BI report, if you want to place any bind parameter, that parameter has to be prefixed with colon. Okay. And coming to the list of values nothing but it's like we are providing a list of values to a bind parameter at runtime so that user can select the value from that particular list of values. So when we create a list of value, we'll attach that list of value to the bind parameter. So that particular bind parameter will provide the list of values to the user for selection. So this is a difference between a bind parameter as well as list of values. Now let us discuss this particular bind parameter and the list of values with one of the report approach. So like here in this particular sample today, we'll discuss about a report which is based on a sales order tables, I mean to say. And here we have four parameters. One is organization ID. Other one is header ID, nothing but sales order header ID. Other one is sales order status code. Next one is the sales order creation date. And here I have highlighted them. So here if you observe, org ID, I mentioned it as it's kind of a mandatory parameter. I have not applied any NVL approach here. And for the header ID, I mentioned it as NVL, nothing but it is not a mandatory parameter. Similar to the creation date, which is not a mandatory. And for the status code also, it is not a mandatory. And here, if you observe, for the header ID, we are considering that you may get only one header ID. And creation date, you may get only one creation date. But for status code, I may get n number of status code in the selection. Nothing but we are providing a multi-selection approach for the status code. We'll see how we have achieved that. And then this is how it looks like here if you observe the parameters, right? And org ID, the parameter type should be menu, if at all, if it is based on the list of values. So here the data type is string, but the parameter type is menu. And similarly for the header ID, it is string, and here it is we provide it as search here. And status code, it's like a drop down. That's the reason we provide it as menu option. Creation date, the parameter type is date and data type is date. Nothing but it provides a calendar pop-up so that we can select the date in a particular format. So that's the difference between each particular parameter. We have strings as well as we have dates, and we also have menu, search as well as date, different type of parameter types. Okay. And here, if you observe these list of values, each of them depends upon a particular query. The first one here, if you observe the status code, status is code based on, a different status code union query. And the other one is BU list, which is based on a HR operating units table. And the coming to the order number list, which is based on DO headers or nothing but sales order header table, and in which we are considering that the user has to select the org ID so that you will populate the BU list. Nothing but it's a dependent parameter. Okay. And now, so what we do is try to implement this particular report now in the Fusion instance. So we'll try to navigate to the Fusion instance and let us navigate to the report. So click on tools and then a report and analytics. If at all, if it is not open, if it is open, you can directly navigate to that. So in our case, it is already open. Either way, it's fine. So we can just wait. You can just click on browse catalog so that it will navigate to the report instance. I'll close the other one. So let us copy the query behind this particular data model. So here, if you observe the main query, so when you're designing a query with bind parameter, what we can do is you can mention the bind parameter name like a colon followed by, generally we always mention the parameter name like a prefix with colon, then p underscore, and then you mention the appropriate parameter name. Okay. So now for organization ID is equal to colon p underscore org underscore ID. Similarly for the header ID, as we mentioned, it is not a non-mandatory parameter. Similarly, creation date not mandatory parameter, but status code, observe carefully here. We mention in clause because we are expecting multiple selection for the status code. That's the reason we mentioned like that. Now I'll just go to here I'm in the custom Aura trainings folder. In this one, I'll click on create and click on data model. Save the data model. sales order report with bind parameter. Okay. And now I'll just copy the query. So if you create a data set now, which is having bind parameter, now what will happen is, let us see that. So I'll just click on plus symbol, click on SQL query. I'll just mention GSODDL and then mention application source as data source application DB FSCM. Paste the query. Once you click on OK, so it will try to ask you that there are 4 parameters mentioned. Do you want to create it? Yes, we want to create them. So just select them and click on OK. Okay. As of now, let's click on save. Now, so next thing what we want to do is we want to create the list of values and attach them appropriately. So the first LOV what we want to create is we want to create the business unit list of values. So copy the query and go to the list of values here, and I'll click on plus symbol and I'll say BU list and mention the source as application DB FSCM and make sure that you click on save. So now here if you observe, this particular list of values has 2 columns in the query, and the first column will be shown to the user and the second column will be returned to the data model. We'll see, understand what I am trying to tell you that. Okay. Now similarly copy the next one, which is order number list. Order number list, SQL query, application DB FSCM and save. This is based on the P org ID, okay, which is a dependent parameter. Now the next one is status code list, which is for the status code, order status code, I can say status code list. Okay. Now, so now let us change one by one. So click on parameters. Now the first parameter which I want to show is the org ID. So I'll just make it as up. I'll drag it to up and make it as mandatory and click it as menu. And so we'd like to have only one selection for the org, this one BU list. So I'll just remove this can select all option. And here in the display label, I'll say organization or business unit name, organization name, or maybe I can mention business unit name. And similarly, next column, I want to show it as this one, like order number. Order number, I'll move it to the second position. Yeah, this one. And this one, what we can do is we can make it a search. And here it is based on order number list. Okay. And this here for this one, you have to select refresh other parameters on change. You have to refresh this one, right? So here, yeah, for this one, you just for the BU, just click on this one so that the header ID will get refreshed based on the PORG ID. Okay. Now coming to the next one, and fourth one will make it a status code, and this one will be again based on menu, and we'll select status code. And here you can select multiple selection because we want to allow multiple selection. And I just uncheck the can select all. Okay. Or you can have it as of now. It's okay. And when you click on select all, it is asking whether you want to pass it as null value passed or all value passed. In our case, it is okay. Null value passed is okay for us. And date, yep, let us say we'll make as order creation date, and status, we'll set it as order status code. Okay, now go to sales order detail, click on data. Let us observe how it looks like now. So I'll select UK business unit, and here to select the search field. Maybe you can just mention, I'll select this order number and click on view. Okay, now it is fetching the data. Now let us say here, if you observe, the status code of this particular order is closed, right? I'll remove this one and I'll try to fetch all the orders which are closed. I'll just click on view and let us see what it displays now. So it displays all the orders whose status code are closed. And you can just click on this tree view and observe here. For the org ID, we selected UK business unit. It is passing some org ID. Now let us say here, what I'll do is I'll select 90286 and try to click here. Let us say status, this one I'll select all and click on view and see what data parameter, the parameters, how the parameters are getting populated. So the parameter here, the P header ID is getting populated with this particular value, right? And now creation date. So as of now, we have not mentioned anything, nothing populated. And for status code also, we have not entered anything. That's the reason it is not populating any value. Let us say if you select some value, let's say closed, and see what happens. Okay, now what we want to do is, let us say in general, what happens is when you're passing some data as a parameter, so it expects these output parameters also should be displayed in the output. So but here if you observe, for header name, for the business unit name, it is passing org id to the query, but now we want to display all the parameter values also. So but ids, no user can identify the ids, right? So for that purpose, what we do is, let us design other logic for that. So for g parameters, what I'm doing is I try to create one more group, one more data set. I'll copy this, and here this particular data set will help us to find out what is the BU name as well as order number. So G params, and I just mentioned the union here. And for the first column, I just passing the P org ID so that I'll get the BU name. And second, for the second one, I'm passing header ID, so I'll get the sales order number. Now let's click on data. Now let me try with a different BU. US, I'll try US business unit. Okay, and status code, and click on view. Okay, I got this one. Let's say I'll try to select. So for order creation date here, if you observe, right? So it should be date parameter. Why it is not showing? Yeah, creation date, it should be date. So you have to select it as date so that it will show it as a date parameter. And this is order number. Okay, so we could see the business unit name as US1 business unit and sales order number as this one. But still, like because of the other parameters, we have not received any data. Okay, so now what we want to do is like there is one option in the data set in the properties. So here just include empty tags for null elements also, because now like when you're trying to generate, let us say if I'm trying to generate an XML data, so it may not provide me the value for the null elements, but I want that null element data also. So let me click on view, right? So now what I'll do is I'll simply click on export. Okay, take this file, place in this. Now here if you observe, in the data DS we got org ID, P header ID, P creation date, and P status code, but still it is not a full set of element, right? So now let us see here. So mention this one, include open and close tag. Include open and close tag. Let us try again. Okay, export. I'll copy this file again. Okay, I don't see any change, but it's fine. Let us see in the template how it works. So I'll just open MS Word, click on blank document. Now here, save this particular file in the same location. Sales order report with bind parameters, TMPL. Now click on BI Publisher, sample XML, table using a wizard. Now select the G1. G1 is our data stuff, right? You can just see here G1 G1 is our actual sales order data. So I'll go with G1, and we don't require org ID, and we don't require header ID and line ID. Remaining are fine for us. Go next, finish. No grouping we require. Is fine so far. And now the next thing we want to have it is, let us say I want to display parameters also. I want to display parameters also. So for this, what I'll do is parameters. So I'll select. Either way, we can create it manually, or we can just create our own, like using a wizard also. We can try it. Either we should work it. Okay. Now let's say we have 4 parameters. Let's say org name, sales order number, creation date, and status code. Now what we can do, so you can just click on BI Publisher, click on fields, and here for this one, org name, you have to select it from G2. Okay. Org name, select it from G2. Click on this one, click on insert. And similarly for this one, sales order number, click on this one and select insert. And creation date, select from the data DS and click on insert. And for status code, and just select here and insert. That's it. Sorry, it got inserted here. Just cut and paste. And try the preview. I'll just click on HTML preview. So we got the business unit information. Sales order number, I think we have not selected. Creation date also we not selected. And status code also we not selected. That's the reason it was not displaying. Now what we do is, let us try to register the report and let us see how it works. So I'll just click on save, click on create report. And click on use report editor. Click on finish. Sales order report with bind parameter. Let us upload the template. Upload the template, output, English. No, it's RTF and then English. Okay, and you can just click on view and list, view as a list, and you can see the default format as HTML. And you can, if you want to change the formats, you can change it. As of now, we'll just ignore and let us click on view report. Click on view report and let us enter the parameter values and see how it works. So by default, it is executing. So this is not a good practice. What we can do is click on this gear icon, because it may fetch lot number of data. So click on edit report and click on properties, and here auto run. Make sure that you unselect this one, auto run, because if it is a huge data, right, it simply structs the report. Click on view report, and here now let's say we'll select UK. The parameters are getting refreshed. Now select order number, and let us say I'll select, it's okay, we'll select all and click on apply. So now let us say status code. Here if you observe DOO reference, let us I just want to select the status code DOO reference and just click on apply. And here if you observe, this is a sales order number, this is our status code. And let us say if you want to populate the creation date also, right? Let us say here if you observe what is the creation date, it is 8th November 2017. So you just want to validate whether the parameters are getting passed or not. If you pass it, is it getting executed or not? That's the reason I just want to validate all these things. Right? So it seems like all the things are getting passed properly, and we are getting the data properly, right? And yeah, so let us, if you remove this sales order number and try to re-execute, we should get different data now. Okay. So this is how we can apply bind parameter a list of values in Oracle Fusion BIP. Thank you.